everyone, my name is Marianne Tripotto, and I'm going to be discussing contemporary leadership models today. I'm specifically going to be going into detail of two leadership models. We're going to go into detail what the basis of each one is, and then we're going to compare and see what their similarities and differences are among them. So let's get into this. The first model I'm actually going to go into detail with is Bowman and Deal Reframing Leadership and Management Organizations model. So this model here is a situational leadership model. And what that means is that a leader is going to change maybe the style that they're leading dependent on the situation. And this specific model actually has four frames that we break this into. We have structural, human resources, political, and symbolic. Structural, to get into detail, the basis of that frame is the structure of work processes. Basically, the formal relationships that are established or the adherence to rules, policies, procedures, etc. In this frame, leaders are going to develop models. They're going to implement and experiment continually. So that's kind of within that structural model frame. Then nextly is the human resources frame. This is basically the human energy in the organization, which is actually based off of McGregor's Theory Y model. And what this leadership frame is organizations meet the human needs. So that's the basis of that, and that the organization and individual are a good fit for each other, and they both are benefiting from the situation. These leaders are going to believe in the people, their staff, and they're going to empower them. So human resources, that framework is really based on the human and organization and how they work together. Then we're going to get into the political frame. This frame is the resource allocation within the organization. They're going to be maybe create relationships to reallocate resources, goals set through negotiations, things like that within that political frame. Leaders are going to create linkages to others like stakeholders and clarify their wants and what they can get. So that's the political frame. Now we're going to get into lastly the symbolic frame. This is kind of gets into the basis of the feelings and meaning, is kind of the basis of this frame. They're going to want to get to what members feel about certain issues. In this frame, meaning is more important. That's what the symbolic frame is all about. Leaders interpret and frame experience, discover, and communicate the vision. So symbolic frame is more about the meaning is most important than the actual event. So you're kind of trying to figure out what members feel about certain issues, not specifically the event or issue, if that makes sense. And this is the Bowman and Deal leadership model. Now we're actually going to be getting into another model, which is Lynn's Leadership, Art and Science, and Public Leadership and Management model. Now this again is actually a situation leadership model as well. And like I had stated in the last slide, it's more of a way that a leader depends on their leadership style based on a situation. And that's kind of what the situation leadership is. So this leadership model is thinking and conceptualizing, which will get you to an effective situational leadership. That is the basis of this model. And these leaders, the leader is more important than the organization in this model, and that's what they believe. Within this, there's actually 4 factors that depend on success that Lynn states as personality, skills and experience, design for change, and favorability of the situation. So these 4 have to be all together, and they depend on your success with being a leader. So you can see how these both are different but similar in some aspects. And we're actually going to get into further detail into how they actually compare. And now we'll get into the similarities and differences on this slide. We'll first start with the similarities of each model, which is on the left side of this slide. We have that they are both situational leadership models, which we've already stated in the previous slides. We've seen how they are both situational. Secondly, their leadership skill that they have in common is they are evaluating the situation. And that comes with being a situational leadership model. They're going to evaluate before reacting to the situation. And now we'll get over to the differences of each. So Bowman and Deal is more of a short-term than a long-term model, whereas Lynn's is more of a long-term than a short-term. So in that aspect, they're actually flipped. Next, we'll get into the focal point. So within Lynn's model, the focal point is the leader, whereas in Bowman and Deal, the organization is the focal point. So they're different in their focal points in that aspect. Bowman and Deal is actually more of a practitioner-based, whereas Lynn's model is more empirical than practitioner-based evidence. So they both combine and use both, but one is more than the other, and they're flipped in that part. Next, we have Lynn's system employed. So they are more conceptual thinking that is individualized, and they use decision support models, whereas Bowman and Deal have a decision support system. And then lastly, we're going to get into leadership skills. We did note that they do have the common leadership skill of evaluating the situation, but they do have some differences. Bowman and Deal, they are decision making and they use their application of inner knowledge, whereas you have the Lynn's model and they're more of critical thinking in that aspect, and they're using that empirical evidence, so they're critically thinking in that part. And next we're going to get into the slide, this slide here, which is a better fit for healthcare organizations. Within my opinion, I feel that Bowman and Deal's leadership model is a better fit for healthcare organizations. The organization influences the leader. I think that within a situational model, you're going to need to think of the organization, their interest, with those 4 frames. So we have the structural, human resources, political, and symbolic frames that we are going to put into this healthcare management role and kind of base our situations off of these and lead within whichever aspect we need. Healthcare changes a lot and is fast-paced. So with this being a short-term, more of a short-term model, I think that works within this situation because everything's changing. You're going to need to change within based situations. I think human resources is a great frame, which is the energy in the organization, and we are going to want to make sure that the organization meet the human needs. So we're always thinking about the organization, but thinking about who we're employing within the organization and leading them together and keeping both interests in mind. I do think that this is a great fit for healthcare organizations and can be utilized. And then last here is my slide of references. Feel free to click the links, go to these web books. They're actually books. You can actually go onto them and read further into the models and see how they are effective and which you would feel that would work best in a healthcare organization. And that is about it. Thank you very much.